Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast. Michelle, be honest. How often do you find yourself totally spacing out in a meeting, skimming those ridiculously long emails, or just losing your cool when someone just goes on and on without making a point?
Alex, please. It's a daily occurrence. Seriously. It's like some people think the more they talk, the smarter they sound. Newsflash. That's rarely the case.
Exactly. Which is why I'm excited to talk about Brief, Make a Bigger Impact by Saying Less, by Joseph McCormack. The core idea is that in today's world, where we're bombarded with information and our attention spans are shrinking faster than ever, being brief isn't just polite, it's a total advantage.
So, is this basically a self-help book for people who can't seem to get to the point?
It's more than that, actually. It's useful for pretty much anyone who wants to communicate more effectively. McCormack gives you the tools to cut through the noise, master concise messaging, and use things like storytelling and visuals to really drive your point home.
I'm into it. Less fluff, more impact. But how do you actually do it? What's the secret sauce?
Great question. We're going to break down 3 key areas today. First, we'll explore why brevity is so crucial for getting noticed in a world that's drowning in information. Next, we'll dive into McCormack's techniques, like the brief method, for structuring your messages so they're super clear and impactful. And finally, we'll look at practical ways to use these techniques in everyday situations, whether you're writing emails, running meetings, or even delivering some not-so-great news.
So it's like sharpening a knife to cut through the nonsense?
Yes, exactly. Think of it as communication as a skill, a honed skill, where truly less really is more. Let's get started. So, building on sharpening communication, let's dive into the chaos of modern communication. Michelle, picture this. You're stuck in a meeting, drowning in PowerPoint, and leave with a headache instead of decisions. Sound familiar?
Oh, terribly familiar. Death by PowerPoint, absolutely. And those never-ending emails that should have been a quick line? What's with all the clutter anyway?
Precisely. We're in an era of information overload, as McCormack puts it. People see over 100,000 words daily, like reading a novella. And with an attention span of just 8 seconds, mental burnout is inevitable. No one can absorb that much, so yeah, verbosity kills understanding.
Right? People just keep adding more layers, more fluff. Like trying to eat a burrito with way too much rice. Where's the flavor?
A more colorful metaphor, but spot on. McCormack illustrates this with the story of Ed, an overworked executive. His team had to give a key strategy presentation, clear takeaways, planned actions, the works. Instead, they hit him with dense slides and tons of detail. Guess what happened?
He totally tuned out?
Exactly. Notifications grabbed him, the team lost him, and vital decisions? Postponed. Verbosity doesn't just waste time, it disconnects people. Brevity respects your audience and ensures your message lands before their attention flies away.
Okay, but what about oversimplifying? Sure, cut the words, but do you risk losing the important details people need?
Good point. But brevity isn't about stripping things bare. It's about intentional clarity, getting the core message across without all the unnecessary stuff. Take McCormack's consulting firm example. They transformed their dense reports by starting with a 1-page summary of key findings. It wasn't simplifying the analysis, it was highlighting it. Executives got the key information in minutes.
So, instead of a swamp, they built a bridge. I get it. But brevity is also a mindset. How do you get people to stop over-explaining everything?
Exactly. Brevity begins with actively valuing your audience's time and energy. McCormack links this to a key idea. The more concise you are, the more you show empathy and clarity. Really, curating your message says, I respect your time enough not to waste it.
That makes sense. I guess the other side of this is when ignoring brevity backfires. You mentioned that Army case, right? PowerPoint gone wrong?
Yes. Total cautionary tale. A field officer was briefing generals, and instead of a streamlined presentation, his points were buried under dense slides. One general got so caught up on minor typos that the entire discussion went off the rails. The recommendation, the critical piece, was totally missed. Verbosity doesn't just dilute the message, it pulls attention away.
Oof, typos derailing a strategy meeting. But isn't that just human nature? People fixate on the little things when they're overwhelmed.
Exactly. McCormack says that's why brevity is a discipline. You have to account for limited attention spans and prioritize accordingly. He even lists the 7 capital sins of communication.
7 sins. Let me guess, overthinking is one of them?
Close. It's complication, where people think complex topics need long explanations. Another is cowardice, hedging your messaging to avoid being bold or direct. There's also confusion, disorganized thoughts flooding the communication, and of course, verbosity, thinking more words equals more value.
So, all those emails that start with just a quick note and end up being 3 pages long.
Exactly. Identifying these tendencies helps professionals be more effective and streamlined.
Right, so brevity is key, but how do people actually practice this? Do we just look in the mirror and say, get to the point?
Great question. McCormack stresses tools like the brief method we mentioned: background, reason, information, ending, follow-up. It's structuring messages to be both concise and complete. Instead of that 10-paragraph email about delays, you set the scene, explain the problem, share the necessary data, give actionable steps, and allow for follow-up.
No more quick updates that are actually longer than War and Peace?
Exactly. And this applies to everything: presentations, meetings, casual talks at the office. You want to be clear and purposeful in every interaction.
Okay, I'm starting to see why this book matters. Modern communication is a mess, and brevity doesn't just clean it up. It builds connections by showing respect for people's time.
Exactly. Brevity isn't just a skill, it's a way to enhance relationships, boost productivity, and have a bigger impact faster. So understanding why brevity is crucial sets us up to explore how to actually do it, right? And that's where McCormack really shines. He doesn't just give us the why, he gives us the how. Today, let's dive into his strategies, starting with the brief map, mind mapping, and visual storytelling. These tools give us a way to move from chaotic ideas to clear communication.
So from blah, blah, blah to here's the core message. Okay, I'm listening. Now this brief map thing, what's the big deal? Is it just another one of those acronyms people use to sound smart?
Not at all. The brief map is great because it's simple yet structured. It's about breaking your message into 5 key elements: background, reason, information, ending, and follow-up. Think of it as a mental checklist to keep your message on track, whether it's a presentation, an email, or even just a conversation. It's like a GPS for your message, making sure your audience gets where you're going without getting lost.
All right, I get the theory, but how does this work in reality? Can you give me an example of how the brief map actually helped someone?
Absolutely. I'm thinking about a sales team that used to deliver quarterly performance updates to their executives. Before, they'd cram their presentations with so many metrics and bullet points that everyone would get lost. The key takeaways? Gone. But then they started using the brief map. They'd start with the background. What the previous quarter's goals were. The reason was why those goals mattered, connecting them to broader trends. Information. Then only included the most important data, like lead conversion rates. They'd end with the ending, offering clear insights like, here's where we should put our resources next quarter, before setting up the follow-up team.
Let me guess, the executives actually managed to stay awake for once?
Not just awake, but engaged and ready to make decisions. The brief map helped them understand, process, and respond. And that's the real win, right? It respects everyone's time while still making an impact. No wading through endless details, no missing the big picture.
Okay, I see how this works in more formal situations, like meetings or presentations. But what if you're just brainstorming or jotting down ideas? Do you really need a map for every random thought?
That's where mind mapping comes in. It's not as rigid as the brief map, but it's still super effective for simplifying complex ideas. It's a visual way to organize your thoughts, starting with a central idea and branching out from there. It's great for planning presentations, writing reports, or even preparing for a speech.
So it's like a more artistic outlining method?
Kind of, but more dynamic. Picture this: a marketing director preparing a keynote for a new product launch. Instead of tons of notes, they start with the product's name in the middle. From there, they branch out into customer benefits and key features, and each of those branches gets its own sub-branches with examples, stats, and so on. It keeps the focus sharp and helps you avoid getting sidetracked.
And I bet it makes the presentation easier to deliver since the speaker isn't fighting to remember all the fragmented details.
Exactly. Plus, it's visual, so it helps with recall. And if you do it right, it makes presentations more engaging because your thoughts are already streamlined and organized.
So, mind maps are the opening act, and the brief map is the headliner. Now, what about this visual storytelling thing? Is it just about using pictures instead of bullet points?
It's not just about the pictures. It's about pairing images with narratives to make complex ideas simpler and more memorable. Humans are wired to process visuals faster than text, so they're great for grabbing attention.
Okay, but do we really need a story for everything? Is an infographic just a fancy chart?
Not when it's done well. One company, Cogmed, created memory improvement software. They noticed potential customers were lost in technical descriptions of the product. So they created an infographic that walked viewers through a simple story: the initial challenge or problem, the software as a solution, and a visual of the step-by-step journey to improving it. Suddenly, people understood it and felt something.
Let me guess, customer interest went way up?
Absolutely. Website engagement increased and product inquiries jumped. Adding a story to the visuals made the message not just easy to understand, but also compelling. That's the power of visual storytelling. It's concise, but it still packs an emotional punch.
Okay, I see the pattern here. All these tools, the brief map, mind mapping, visual storytelling, they all focus on one thing: clarity. Now, what about when you're having a conversation, say in a team meeting? People tend to ramble, and I'm guilty of it too. How do you keep verbal communication concise without sounding like a robot?
Great question. That's where TALK comes in. Talk, actively listen, converse. It's a 3-part strategy designed to make conversations productive and collaborative. You start by talking, laying out the main point, like stating a problem or observation. Then you actively listen, giving the other person the space to share. Finally, you converse. And then turn the conversation into a focused exchange, hopefully leading to an agreement or some sort of action.
So it's basically a way to cut out the unnecessary monologues?
Exactly. Imagine a manager talking to their team about productivity issues. Instead of firing off criticisms or instructions, they might say, "Team output is down 10% this month." That's the talking to docs phase. Then they'd ask, "What do you think is going on?" Actively listening. And they'd end with a joint plan. Based on your feedback, let's redistribute the workload next week. The Raciani converse phase.
What I'm getting out of this is that people don't just appreciate brevity, they do better with it. Think about it. Whether it's structuring your message with the brief map, organizing your thoughts with mind maps, or speaking clearly with TALK, these tools eliminate confusion and show that you value the other person's time.
Exactly. Brevity isn't just a communication style. It's a sign of respect and a way to build stronger relationships. So with these tools ready to go, it's all about putting them to work. Which brings us to today: how brevity, used well, can really change how we interact, both professionally and personally. We're not just talking about being efficient, but also about how it impacts clarity, respect, and connection. Michelle, are you seeing how this all comes together?
Yeah, definitely. We've moved from the theory to the actual tools, and now it's about, making it work in the real world. So, where are we starting? What's the first scenario we're tackling?
Let's start with delivering bad news because that's a communication challenge we all dread, right? It's so easy to waffle or sugarcoat. But McCormack argues that clear, concise honesty, combined with empathy, is always the best approach.
You mean we can finally ditch the compliment sandwich as where someone realizes halfway through that they're about to get some bad news?
Precisely. Take Angelo's story from Zebra Technologies. He applied for a managerial role and didn't get it, so the conversation had the potential to go very badly. Instead, the VP was direct. You didn't get the job. No beating around the bush. But here's the key. Immediately after, the VP focused on how Angelo could prepare for future opportunities.
Wait, so Angelo didn't get upset? Because hearing you didn't get the job can feel like a punch in the gut.
Actually, he appreciated the honesty. Without the fluff or vagueness, Angelo could process the news immediately. And the follow-up about actionable next steps turned disappointment into motivation. A few months later, he worked on those areas, and guess what? He got promoted.
Wow, impressive. So, the formula here is be honest, be concise, but also offer a path forward. You can't just drop bad news and run, right?
Exactly. It's about finding a balance. When you lead with clarity and pair it with empathy, you avoid confusion and allow the other person to respond constructively.
Okay, so bad news doesn't have to equal bad communication. What's next on our tour of brevity?
Email, the bane of everyone's existence, especially our overstuffed inboxes. McCormack's advice is wonderfully simple. Every email should focus on action items and essentials. No huge blocks of text. Prioritize clarity and use things like bullet points to make info easier to digest.
So, no more emails that are basically novels disguised as updates? Hallelujah. But what does that actually look like?
Imagine a senior executive buried in emails. To solve this, they adopt the 5-line rule for emails, keeping messages short, direct, and actionable. For instance, instead of sharing pages of data during a project update, they summarize key points in a few sentences. Like this: we've resolved the shipping delays from last quarter. Updated timelines are attached. Any concerns before we move forward?
Minimal words, maximum impact. I can see the beauty in that, especially with inbox overload. What were the results?
Immediate improvement. Response rates went up, follow-up emails decreased, and the team felt less overwhelmed. And here's the thing. By asking for less energy from the recipients, these concise emails ensured people actually read them and acted on them.
Seems like a win-win. Fewer wasted minutes, fewer gray hairs. But what about when you can't just send an email like in meetings? Aren't those time vacuums even harder to fix?
True, but they can be fixed. McCormack suggests fighting meeting fatigue with serious planning. Clear agendas, time limits, and focusing on outcomes, that's the formula for success.
I think I see an example coming. Let me guess. Some company finally discovered how to make meetings not feel like, a punishment?
Exactly. One company transformed their meetings by creating laser-focused agendas. For a 30-minute meeting, they'd allocate 10 minutes for updates and 20 minutes for action items. They timed brainstorming sessions to prevent tangents, and they ended every meeting with assigned tasks, so everyone knew exactly what to do.
Let me guess. Less eye-rolling, more productivity?
Absolutely. The streamlined approach freed up hours previously wasted in unproductive discussions. And more importantly, participants felt more engaged because the meetings respected their time and achieved clear outcomes.
All right, I'm intrigued. But meetings are formal. What about those quick, informal chats at work? They're often so rushed, you throw ideas out, and half of it gets lost.
That's where the talc method comes in handy. Talk, actively listen, converse. It's designed for short but impactful conversations. Picture it. You start with the essential message, then open the floor for feedback or questions, and then build a collaborative solution together.
Efficient. So instead of those chaotic got-a-minute interruptions that turn into half-hour derailments, TALC brings structure to even the smallest exchanges.
Exactly. And because it's based on brevity, it fosters deeper understanding while saving time for everyone involved.
So this whole idea of brevity is like a superpower. You use it with emails, bad news, meetings, even casual talks, and suddenly people communicate better, faster, and without giving you a headache.
You've nailed it, Michelle. Brevity isn't about shortcuts. It's about removing barriers. Whether it's through an email, a difficult conversation, or a quick chat, brevity enhances clarity and builds connection, all while showing respect for other people's time. So, Michelle, I think we've really nailed down the core of brief. From seeing why brevity is so important, to diving into tools like the brief map, mind mapping, visual storytelling, and even techniques like the talc method. It's pretty obvious that being brief connects people and ideas, cutting through all the noise.
Right, and it's definitely not just about shutting up more often for the sake of it, is it? It's really about being clear, valuing the other person's time, and being deliberate with your words. Whether you're in front of a huge audience, firing off an email, or just grabbing coffee with someone from work.
Absolutely. McCormack's point, and it's a good one, is that brevity is more than just a way to talk. It's a way of thinking, one that shows you value time and actually helps people pay attention.
So here's a little something for our listeners to chew on. Over the next week, pay close attention to how you communicate. Emails, meetings, even just casual chats. Ask yourself, am I getting my point across clearly on purpose and without wasting anyone's time?
That's a fantastic challenge, Michelle. Just remember, brevity isn't about saying less. It's about saying more with less. So until next time, let's all try to embrace the power of getting straight to the point, on purpose.
And maybe save a few folks a headache or two along the way. Catch you all next time.